Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're really taking a plunge into a market that powers, well, literally everything we do, the global power plant market.
It's absolutely fundamental.
Yeah, and we've got this fantastic analysis from Cognitive Market Research. It's titled Global Power Plant Market, Regional Growth and Forecasts.
hmm
So our mission for this deep dive is basically to pull out the really crucial insights from this data. We want to help you get a sense of where the world's energy future is heading, not just globally, but, region by region, even country by country.
And understanding this market is it's so foundational, isn't it? I mean, when we talk about economic development or industrial expansion, or even just our basic quality of life.
Right, the lights staying on?
Exactly. From the lights in our homes to, the whole digital world we rely on, it all comes back to having a robust and constantly evolving energy supply.
Yeah.
So this deep dive, it really gives us a vital lens to see those bigger global trends.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's start with the big picture. The overall market, it's truly immense, and the projected growth is pretty substantial.
It really is.
So our source says global sales revenue was over $557 billion back in 2021.
557 billion, yeah.
And it's forecast to reach, get this, $765.7 billion by 2033,
Wow.
which works out to a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR, of nearly 2.7%. So 2.684% to be precise.
Right. And what's really significant there, I think, is that these aren't just abstract numbers, are they?
Yeah.
They signal this persistent worldwide demand for energy and continuous, really substantial investment in the infrastructure needed to actually generate that power.
Absolutely.
It tells us that, despite all the talk about energy transitions and efficiency, which is happening,
Sure.
the fundamental need for electricity is still driving huge capital spending globally, building and maintaining the systems that light up our world.
Absolutely. And when we zoom in a bit, one region just leaps out. It's the leader, the main growth engine,
Yeah.
Asia Pacific.
Yeah. Apex dominance is clear.
In 2021, APAC already had a market worth over $231 billion and is projected to sold more than $338 billion by 2033. Its regional CAGR, an impressive 3.23%. That's the highest of any region globally.
What's fascinating here is how that explosive growth directly mirrors the ongoing rapid industrialization happening there.
Right.
Urbanization, rising living standards across so many of those nations. You've got huge populations combined with really fast economic expansion.
Yeah.
And that creates what's basically an insatiable demand for power. We're seeing just an unprecedented expansion of energy infrastructure just to try and keep pace.
And to really illustrate that, let's look at some of the key players within APAC. China, for instance. Still a colossus.
Absolutely.
Its market was already over $68 billion in 2021, projected to go over $102 billion by 2033. That's a strong CAGR, over 3.4%. Japan also showing robust growth, climbing from over $37 billion to more than $50 billion by 2033. But like you said, here's where it gets really interesting. India.
India's trajectory is remarkable.
It really is. Starting at nearly $28 billion in 2021, it's set to hit over $45 billion by 2033. And look at this CAGR, 4.18%.
4.18.
Yeah, that's the highest growth rate among all the countries listed in our source worldwide.
Incredible growth story there.
It is. And beyond these giants, other significant markets in APAC are also contributing quite a bit. South Korea, for example, projected to grow from around $22 billion to over $30 billion.
Right.
Singapore, which is obviously much smaller, still shows a notable CAGR of over 3.5%.
Strong growth.
And then collectively, the Southeast Asian markets are also on a steep upward path, showing a CAGR of nearly 3.7%.
Yeah.
So this diverse but, universally growing landscape just underscores how critical energy infrastructure is to that whole region's development.
Definitely. It paints a very clear picture.
Okay, now let's pivot. Let's go across the globe to North America.
Okay.
This region is, well, it's a more mature market, right? But it's still growing steadily. It generated nearly $141 billion in 2021.
And it's forecast to reach over $179 billion by 2033. That's a CAGR of just over 2%, so 2.018%.
Yeah, and when we look at North America, the growth drivers are a bit different, aren't they?
How so?
Well, it seems less about that sort of foundational industrialization we see in parts of Asia, and maybe more about grid modernization, replacing older infrastructure.
Right, aging plants.
Exactly, and that gradual shift towards newer energy sources as well. So the growth is steady, it's significant, but it's definitely at a different pace and, has different underlying drivers compared to that rapid expansion we just talked about in Asia Pacific.
That makes perfect sense. And within North America, naturally, the United States leads the way, accounts for the vast majority of the region's market.
Sure.
It's projected to grow from over $115 billion in 2021 to nearly $145 billion by 2033.
Still huge numbers.
Huge. Canada, while much smaller, actually shows a slightly higher growth rate than the U.S. Its CAGR is 2.75%, reaching almost $20 billion by 2033.
And Mexico also contributes significantly. Its market's forecast to grow to over $14 billion in that same period.
Okay, so steady, but slower overall than APAC.
Exactly. Now, shifting our focus again, let's look at Europe.
Right.
Europe's market recorded over $108 billion in 2021. It's projected to grow to nearly $140 billion by 2033, with an overall CAGR of about 2.2%.
Okay, and Europe. But this region really raises an important question, doesn't it?
Which is?
Well, what accounts for the really diverse growth rates we see across the different European countries?
Right.
Because unlike Asia-Pacific's kind of broad-based expansion.
Right, it seems more varied.
Exactly. Europe's economies are mostly mature. Many are deeply focused on the energy transition, decarbonization, grid efficiency, and that can lead to very different investment priorities. And so you get these varied growth trajectories in power plant infrastructure across the continent.
Absolutely, and the numbers really bear that out. I mean, look at Germany, major industrial powerhouse, right? It shows a robust CAGR of almost 2.9%. Growing from over $21 billion to more than $29 billion by 2033. And that likely reflects its, continued industrial needs alongside its energy transition efforts, the energy wend.
Makes sense.
But then in contrast, you look at countries like France and Italy, they show more modest growth. CAGR's around 1.5% to 1.8%.
Lower, yeah.
Which probably means they're focusing more on maintaining existing infrastructure, often nuclear in France's case, or maybe optimizing their grids rather than massive new builds.
That seems plausible.
And then you have Russia, which shows the lowest CAGR among all the countries listed in our source, just over 1.1%.
Wow, 1.1%. That is low.
Yeah, growing from roughly $7.6 billion to $8.7 billion, which, could suggest maybe a focus on maintaining its already established grid and its vast existing reserves rather than significant new power plant construction in this time frame.
Could be. Or other factors at play, of course.
Of course. Other European markets like the UK, Spain, Sweden, they show pretty steady growth, generally in the 2.3%, 2.5% CAGR range.
Yeah.
So ongoing investment, but maybe more measured compared to, say, Germany or parts of Asia.
A real patchwork across Europe, then.
Definitely. Okay, now let's turn our attention south to South America.
Yeah.
This market is projected for pretty significant regional growth. Revenues climbing from over $35 billion in 2021 to nearly $50 billion by 2033. That's a robust CAGR of almost 3%, 2.967% actually.
Nearly 3%. That's quite strong. And what's compelling about South America, I think, is that potential for development-driven growth, kind of similar in spirit to parts of Asia-Pacific, maybe?
Yeah, a bit.
Though obviously from a smaller base. But countries there are expanding their economies, and that just requires substantial new power generation capacity.
Right.
So this region is definitely one to watch as it continues to build out that foundational energy infrastructure.
For sure. And within South America, Brazil is a key player, expected to grow from nearly $13 billion to over $18 billion.
It's a big market.
Argentina shows particularly strong growth, a CAGR over 3.5%. Chile is also robust at 3.16%. And countries like Colombia and Peru are also expanding their power plant markets, generally showing CAGRs between 2.5 and 2.8%. So it indicates, a widespread need for more energy capacity across the continent.
A lot of activity there.
Definitely. Okay, next stop, the Middle East.
Okay.
Shaping up as a strong emergent market, it started at nearly $23 billion in 2021, with projections to reach over $32 billion by 2033. That's a healthy CAGR of just over 2.9%.
Right. And the Middle East growth, it's often tied to those ambitious national development plans, isn't it?
Like Saudi Vision 2030.
Exactly. And economic diversification efforts.
Right.
You're trying to reduce reliance on just oil and gas.
Makes sense.
So they're investing heavily in infrastructure to support new industries, these massive urban projects, growing populations, all of which demand significant new power generation.
Indeed. And we see strong numbers pretty much across the board there. The UAE, for instance, shows particularly vigorous growth, a TGR over 3.5%.
Wow, UAE leading there.
Yeah, indicates rapid expansion of energy needs for those ambitious development projects, like in Dubai and Abu Dhabi.
Mm-hmm.
Saudi Arabia and Turkey also post impressive TGRs over 3%, signaling significant investment in their power sectors.
Right.
And even countries like Egypt and Qatar, while their KGRs are slightly lower, maybe around 2.5% to 2.7%, they're still undertaking substantial projects to meet rising energy demands.
So strong growth across that region, too.
Seems like it. Okay, finally, we arrive in Africa.
All right, Africa.
Now, it's starting from a comparatively smaller base, but it's certainly poised for notable growth. Revenues were nearly $19 billion in 2021, projected to hit over $26.5 billion by 2033. That's a CAGR of about 2.27%.
Okay, and Africa's energy story is really one of immense potential, isn't it? Often focused on just basic electrification.
Yeah, bringing power to people.
Exactly. Bringing reliable power to a rapidly growing population. So the growth, while maybe not hitting those Asia-Pacific highs, it represents really crucial foundational development for many nations. It's aimed at unlocking broader economic and social progress.
That's right. And South Africa remains a significant market within the continent, projected to grow from nearly $7 billion to over $10 billion by 2033. That's a CAGR approaching 3%.
Okay.
Nigeria, the continent's most populous nation, also forecasts for steady expansion, about 2.5% CAGR. And then the broader rest of Africa segment, while it's growing at a slightly more modest rate, about 1.68% CAGR.
Right.
It still collectively represents significant investment as various countries strive to build out their grids and meet that burgeoning demand.
Lots happening, even if the overall percentage growth isn't as high.
Exactly. So, wow. We've just navigated through billions, or hundreds of billions of dollars across continents. It illustrates the sheer scale and the projected paths of this global power plant market. So what does this all mean for you listening in?
Yeah, if we try to connect these dots, I mean, it's clear, isn't it? The global power plant market isn't just robust, it's dynamically expanding across most regions.
Definitely dynamic.
Asia-Pacific is the undeniable leader, driven by that rapid development in economic powerhouses like India and China, reflecting just immense and growing energy needs. But even the mature markets, North America, Europe, they demonstrate steady growth, although it's varied, like we saw. And that often signals shifts in energy policy or, infrastructure modernization.
Right.
So this incredibly diverse, constantly evolving landscape of investment in power infrastructure. It's a direct indicator of global economic activity. It shows where the world's energy focus is and where it will be, really, for decades to come.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. So for anyone tracking global development or resource allocation, or just the energy sector itself, this kind of nuanced understanding of these regional and country-specific growth rates, it provides really crucial insight into the economic forces shaping our world.
It truly is an incredible picture of global energy demand and development. We've explored the immense scale, the fascinating regional, national variations.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. So, here's a final thought to leave you with. Considering these projected growths, especially in those rapidly developing regions like India and Southeast Asia, what does this data tell us about the future challenges and the opportunities? Things like global energy security, environmental sustainability, technological innovation, and power generation.
That's the crucial question, isn't it? As you reflect on these numbers, maybe consider how these diverse trends might shape the world in the coming years, and what questions this data raises for you personally about our collective energy future.